What made you leave Google?
Slow, became progressively harder to do things. So I left. I had like a stupid idea for building a yeah, I would not recommend this to anyone.
Today I'm interviewing Zach Lloyd, an ex-Google principal software engineer who quit his job and became the CEO of Warp, an amazing AI tool that has changed the industry.
There are reports that you guys are adding 1 million annual recurring revenue every 10 days, which is very impressive.
We've been growing really fast.
But in today's video, we're going to take a stroll down memory lane. Talk about how he went from being this lost 20-year-old to becoming an AI leader, plus some of his thoughts in this AI world and the impacts on the job market.
What type of job loss do you anticipate?
Web developer or front-end developer or a very junior developer, your job's at risk. I think the absolute worst thing you can do if you want to be in that field is like
Wow. I've actually never heard it like that before.
Hope you enjoy this conversation, and let's get to it.
Zach, you went from working at Google to becoming one of the most successful tech CEOs in Silicon Valley. But before Google and before like all your sort of successes, take me back to a moment in time that led you on that path.
So I went to college at Stanford, not a computer science major. I was something called symbolic systems, which is a really cool degree. It's a combination of philosophy, logic, computer science, math. During college, I mostly did like computer science internships during the summer. So I was an intern at Amazon a few times. Leaving college, I actually didn't know what I wanted to do. My first year out of school, I worked at Amazon. And then I was like, you know what? I don't really want to be an engineer. I went and got a master's degree in philosophy of science for a year.
Oh. Okay.
I was kind of all over the map here. I then went to law school for a year. You know, even though I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I was like, okay, this is probably a good general purpose degree.
Law school is a general purpose degree?
This is how I was thinking at the time.
Okay.
No. So I went for a year and then I was like, okay, my approach to this is totally wrong. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a lawyer. I withdrew from law school for a year. I moved to New York. I actually literally moved in with my dad. I was like 25 at the time. This is how lost I was. I was like, I like playing music. And so I ended up getting a job at a recording studio, kind of not too different from where we're sitting right now. Actually, I'm looking around, I'm seeing like instruments in here. And while I was doing that, I was like, you know, I just don't want to live in my dad's place that much longer as an adult. Like it's not good for my social life. And so I ended up getting a part-time job and I was tutoring the SAT, I was tutoring the LSAT, and then finally I was like, I need something better than that. And so I ended up getting a part-time job as a programmer. I found it off of Craigslist, and that's how I kind of went full circle and got back into programming.
Yeah.
And then from there, I was like, you know, if I want to do programming for real, I ended up really liking it, is when I applied to Google and got to Google. Yeah.
So how did it feel like being in this state where you're like law school, this job, programming part-time? Like what was your mental state? How did you feel?
I would say I felt really anxious and I felt like I was like falling behind. I had friends who took a straight path.
Yeah.
Who had felt like they knew what they wanted to do. And here I am, I'm like 25, 26. I've got a degree that's in philosophy, which is cool, but not useful. I'm in law school and I don't like it. I'm living with my dad. And so, yeah, I think I felt like I was behind.
Your 20s is like a really weird time. I'm in my 20s, but it's a really weird time where you have like people who are hustling, trying to become millionaires right now. Then there are people who are just trying to get their first job, people who are still in college, some people who are getting married, starting families.
It's all over the place.
It's all over the place. Yeah. But you just kept going at it.
I kept going, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. You got a programming job off of Craigslist?
Yes.
How? Like, explain that.
So this is crazy. And again, I would not recommend this to anyone. You know, I was working at this recording studio I was doing, which was fun. It was really cool, but didn't pay very well. But I didn't want to give that up. And so I looked online and Craigslist, I don't know what Craigslist is like these days, if this is still a thing, but they would have part-time job postings. And I saw there was one, it was for like a startup in the travel space. And it was like only 20 hours a week. So I was like, okay, I can do 20 hours a week. It was not far from where I was living, which was in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I went and talked to them and they gave me like a programming test and I passed it. And it was like, you know, paid way better than the recording studio. And so I did it.
So why Craigslist? Why not like LinkedIn, Twitter?
Honestly, like I wasn't ready to commit. It was like I had some weird thing where I was like, I didn't really feel like ready to commit. And Craigslist, like this felt more like a step into the tech world. And then it was only when I started doing this job and doing it 20 hours a week where I was like, I actually really like this,
Yeah.
that I wanted to do it more for real.
Making the most of every situation. How did you leverage your experience at that Craigslist programming job to get into Google?
Just doing that job made me realize I really like building. I learned a lot of about how to be a professional engineer from. And then it gave me enough confidence that I was like, I think I want to do this for real. And once I know that I want to do something for real, it became much clearer to me, like, hey, well, there's a better place for me to learn this stuff.
So I'm a little confused. So it was a job. So what do you mean by doing it for real? Like what were you doing at this job?
Oh, no, I was coding, but I was like, if I'm going to code, I want to go to the best place now to learn how to code.
There you go.
And work on the hardest problems and the most impactful thing. And so that was, all due respect to people I was working with there, I think there was a better place for me to learn, and Google was definitely that. Google took me from being okay as an engineer, I had good undergraduate training, to I think being really good as an engineer. I don't know if people I work with now would think that, but I was a good engineer, and that's where I learned how to do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about your first project at Google.
So I was just very randomly placed on the Google Sheets team when it was really early. There's 5 of us on the team. Literally, I remember the first thing that I built, if you're interested in that.
Yeah, sure.
Which is a little feature that still exists in Google Sheets today. If you go and scroll to the bottom of your spreadsheet, there's a little button that says add more rows.
Okay. Nice.
And that button didn't exist. I forget how it was done before, but I built that. And it was actually really hard for me because Google Sheets, again, this probably predates you, but it was one of the first web apps that really felt like a desktop app. And it was very, very advanced as far as what we were doing with JavaScript and real-time collaboration, and all of that was really hard to do. And so I remember just sitting there being oh my God, how the hell does this thing work? I figured it out, obviously. And yeah, that was the first thing I built. It's still in Google Sheets right now.
Going from all the variety of experiences you had, did you face any imposter syndrome working at a top company like Google?
I definitely did. So, and especially because I don't have a computer science degree. So I think that was actually the thing that gave me the most imposter syndrome. Like I said, my degree was in this thing called symbolic systems. So I had taken some amount of the computer science curriculum in college, but there were a bunch of core CS classes that I hadn't taken. Especially Google at that time is it's a very academic place. Almost everyone had a computer science degree. Many people had graduate degrees or even PhDs in computer science. I'm 4 years out of college where I'd been in law school. And so I felt crazy imposter syndrome at the beginning. I just spent a lot of time trying to learn how to become a good engineer. I read a lot of books. I worked a lot with more senior engineers. I finally, I think I improved.
Thankfully, you did overcome it, and you worked yourself up to being a principal engineer at Google. So how do you go from not knowing anything and feeling out of place to being a principal engineer market-wide is 1.5% of engineers reach to, which is insane.
When I was at Google, I would get promoted every year and a half. Big projects around Google Sheets. We basically rewrote the whole thing from scratch, literally nuts to bolts, and replaced the thing that had so many people using it. And we did it in a way that was really, really technically challenging. So we moved all of the stuff that used to be on the server. It used to be the server had the whole brains of the spreadsheet, all the calculations and pivot tables and conditional formatting and all these dynamic things. And the problem with that was you couldn't use a spreadsheet without the internet connection. People really wanted offline. It also created a lot of latency. And so we did the whole thing. We moved it into the browser. We also made it work on all the phones. We just did some really hard projects. And one of the ways you get promoted at a place like Google is if you do something hard that's impactful, they definitely take that into consideration.
Not many people would leave Google, especially given the compensation and the comfort levels. What made you leave Google?
Slow, became progressively harder to do things.
Yeah.
And I've heard that that's just gotten worse since I've left. Everything there is geared around this career ladder that you're on. Understandably, if you create an incentive system around getting promoted, people are going to do the things that it takes to get promoted, me included. But unfortunately, that creates these situations where it's rather than just trying as hard as you can to build the right thing for customers or users, you as a manager are architecting what you're building to position people to get promotions.
So you're saying the incentive structure is misaligned?
I think so. When I was looking at the 2 paths ahead, so one path would have been stay at Google, try and take on some other big challenge at Google, what I would have done, which would have been cool. I don't know exactly what it would have been, or go out on my own. That I didn't never really consider taking another job. To me, the question was like, do I stay at Google or do I try and start a business? And I was like, at a point in my life where I felt like I should take a risk. I didn't have too many responsibilities, which was good. I'd had a good job. I'd saved a little bit of money, and I really wanted to try something that would force me to grow, and maybe I'd fail, and like the failing would be okay, I think. I had like an idea for a business, but that actually didn't matter to me as much. And again, I think everyone's different here. Some people will go start a company because they have some burning idea.
Yeah.
In this case, I was just like, I actually really want the personal growth experience. I'm like really competitive. I was like, I want to see if I can build something that people care about.
Yeah.
And so I left. I had like a stupid idea for building a photo sharing app that I worked on for a little bit. And then all of a sudden I was just kind of out in the deep end trying to like build stuff. Ultimately ended up meeting someone through an investor connection who I did end up being like the co-founder with and the CTO with in a venture-backed company. And that was the first sort of real company that I did outside of Google.
And what was that company?
So that company was called Selfmade. It was a bunch of different things. It started off as like a photo editing marketplace. And so what I mean by that is like the original concept was you as a consumer would want to have a photo edited for some reason. Like maybe you wanted it retouched, maybe you wanted it to be funny or cool or whatever. And this idea doesn't make any sense in the world of AI, just so you know.
Yeah.
But like what you would do is you would send that photo via an app to Selfmade, and then we had like a kind of two-sided marketplace of photo editors who would take the photo, follow your instructions, and try to edit it and make it look cool for you. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
And so that idea didn't really work. And so we ended up kind of pivoting and repositioning into being a marketing company. And what worked better was using that same sort of workflow, but instead of doing it for individuals, doing it for businesses, specifically businesses that wanted to have like a really professional social media presence. So if you were a business and you wanted like a professional presence on Instagram or on your website or whatever, you could use our same sort of like photo editing capability to do that. And that kind of worked. Like we got that to be like a Series A company, but ultimately it was not a thing I was passionate about. And like the co-founder and I like had different ideas on the direction for it. And I ended up, I stayed there for 3 years, but I ended up moving on from that.
So I want to get into your latest startup,
Yep.
Warp.
Yep.
There are reports that you guys are adding 1 million annual recurring revenue every 10 days, which is very impressive.
We've been growing really fast.
Yeah. But for our audience who maybe don't know Warp,
Yep.
how would you explain it?
Yeah. So Warp, really simply, it looks like a terminal. One of the two tools that developers spend their days in. So there's the terminal and the code editor. Warp started as a terminal where you can run, it's like a better interface for running terminal commands.
Yeah.
But these days, the thing that's really driving our business is that instead of just using it to run terminal commands, you can use it to launch agents. So if you open up Warp and you ask it to write code for you, it will write code. Or if you ask it to set up a new project, it will set up a new project. If you are someone who is working with production systems like Google Cloud or AWS, you can ask it to set up services or debug why your services are crashing. And so it's a really, really versatile environment for launching and managing development agents.
And what is the difference between you guys and like Cursor, Windsurf, Replit, Lovable? What makes you guys unique?
So we're based out of the terminal, and all of those other tools look more like an IDE. And so, the IDE, the main interface is like a file editor. And so it's really written for, kind of hand editing of code. And in my view, the world is moving from hand editing code, like what I call development by hand, to developing by prompt. And in a world of developing by prompt, you just don't need something that looks like Microsoft Word for code. You need something that is really good at like, you tell it what you want it to do, and you can see the agent do it. And maybe you can have multiple agents running at once. And it just happens that the form factor of the terminal is better for that. So that's how it just is a very different developer experience compared to those.
Yeah, kind of almost like very, very powerful because you get it on like the computer level almost.
It's the lowest level.
Yeah.
It's like down to the metal. That's the other way. It's different, and I think better is like it can work on, say, multiple projects at once, or it can do things that aren't even like related to programming. Like it can resize all your files or organize your hard drive or like take an audio transcript and caption it. And so it's an interface for you to tell the computer what to do. And because of where it is, it can do almost anything. It's pretty cool.
So pretend I don't know anything about agents.
Okay.
How would you describe the work you do with agents at Warp to me?
Okay, so an agent is just like a fancy word for like a program. It's a program that you launch through a prompt. Let's say it's a mobile app, and I want this mobile app to have like login. So the old way of doing it would be that I would go look up the documentation for something that would help me add login. Then I would go into the code and I would find the right place to add the code, and I would type the code for adding the login widget.
Yeah.
And then I would go test it and see if the login widget worked. In the agent world, I literally just type into the agent and say something like, can you add login to my app? I want the login to look like X. You should use this login service, like the Google login service or Firebase. You hit enter. And when that happens, you get to watch the agent take a whole number of steps on your behalf to do this thing for you. And so, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can literally see like a transcript of it working, kind of like, actually a good analogy is kind of like ChatGPT, except imagine ChatGPT where it's not just answering your question, it's doing things that you're asking it to do.
Okay, so ChatGPT it's like the basic chatbot LLM spits things out.
Yeah.
But agents are actors.
They're actors. That's the best way. And as actors, right, you tell them what you want, and then they have access to what we call tools. So just like a human actor might have tools, these agents have tools. They have like a code writing tool. So the agent at any moment can be like, okay, in response to this prompt, I want to write some code.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They have a tool that can read files. So it's like, oh, okay, I want to read the contents of this file. Let me call the read file tool. They have a tool that can read a web page. And so they have this like kind of like toolbox, and you tell them what you want to do, and then they like use the things in their toolbox to do it.
Okay. And I guess Warp can just set up the agent, hand its tool, and have it go execute.
Yeah, exactly.
You guys are an AI startup, right?
We're an AI startup.
So I know there are a lot of AI startups nowadays, especially here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley.
You drive down the 101, it's just like
It's everywhere. It's everywhere, right? What differentiates you guys from any of those startups that are just like GPT wrappers?
Yeah, so for us, I guess one thing to keep in mind is like we actually started before AI. So we've been building Warp for 5 years now.
Okay.
So we started in, let's see, ChatGPT I think came out at the end of 2022. So the original vision for Warp was to make the user experience of the terminal modern and like much more accessible and easy to use. So to do that, we basically rebuilt the whole terminal app, and like to give like make that more concrete, like the mouse doesn't work. It's ridiculous. You can't like click and put the cursor someplace.
You have to press like I and go like da da da.
Yeah, it's like it's so weird. In the normal terminal app, like if you want to copy and paste the output of a terminal command, you have to like select it and like scroll. In Warp, you can just kind of right click and be like copy the output.
Yeah.
We'd already spent a lot of time improving this interface, and here we're very lucky. It applies extremely well to working with agents. And so we have this really actually different app than anyone else on the market. Like if you look at all of the coding apps out there, whether it's like Cursor, Windsurf, or even like Claude Code or Gemini CLI, there's nothing that is the terminal. And so somewhat by luck, I think, but also somewhat like our original thesis was this is an important app to rebuild. We've put ourselves in a position where we have a very unique and different app than everyone else out there. So definitely not just like something you could throw together as like a GPT wrapper at all.
Yeah. I don't use terminal anymore. I have Warp and I tell it, hey, download Java, download Python.
It does that for you.
It does it. And then if any commands fail, it like reruns it, finds it. Like in college, I spent so much time
It's the worst.
going back and forth with the Stack Overflow here. I wasted so many hours. Like it's insane how much time Warp has saved.
Yeah, it's really magical. And the cool thing is like, it just gets rid of the really annoying parts of development. It's not like it's taking any creativity from you. It's just like you didn't want to spend that time installing Java, did you?
No. I think I spent more time trying to be able to write Java than actually writing Java.
No, exactly. I mean, there's a million other things it does, but it makes that type of thing very, very easy and just like gets rid of a bunch of frustration and pain.
Yeah, absolutely. No need to memorize MKDIR, LS.
No.
like other
You can use it completely in English.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. So, the CEO of Anthropic, Dario, has warned that artificial intelligence could eliminate half of entry-level white-collar jobs and lead to an unemployment rate as high as 20% within 5 years. So, Zach, since you're also building an AI company that does so much with a computer,
Yep.
what type of job loss do you anticipate?
I think that in the engineering field, if you are a web developer or front-end developer or a very junior developer, your job's at risk. I think the absolute worst thing you can do if you want to be in that field is not get a CS education. And the best thing you can do is actually learn how computers work at a really deep level and position yourself to be someone who is managing the agent rather than be replaced by the agent, if that makes sense. I think that's the most important thing.
You mentioned junior engineers, front-end engineers, web developers are most at risk from AI?
I think so. And I think in general, people who are working on the least complex apps and the most ubiquitous apps, the ones that are least custom, that's the stuff that's most easily sort of just straight out of the box doable by AI. Whereas conversely, if you're working on a really complex app at any kind of app that is used by a lot of people or is used for something that drives a business forward, those are the hardest apps to build, and they're the ones that are going to be most secure if you know how to work on them.
Specifically, can you highlight some of the roles that are safer versus at risk?
Yeah, I think it's maybe role is the wrong distinction. I think it has to do with the type of software that's being built. So if you're someone who's working at a bank on their software, I think you're probably safe. If you're working on a piece of hard software that might get pinned in your doc, like Notion or Figma or Warp or Google Docs, you're safe. If you are working in regulated industries, I think it's going to take longer for the technology to get in there. Anything that's the bigger the code base, the more context, the harder the business problem, the more bespoke it is, the more safe your job is, compared to on the other side of the spectrum, it would be something that's almost templatable. This is why I go to website building, I think is, especially if you think of website building as marketing websites, for instance, things that don't have complicated business logic, anything where there's a range of acceptable solutions. Because when you go to build a marketing site, there's probably 20 versions of that site that might be okay. Whereas if you go to build a banking application that's transferring money, it has to be exactly right. So I think that you want to be working on the things that have, less flexibility in the solution.
Wow. I've actually never heard it like that before, where it's almost like things that can be templatized.
Yes.
AI can take over, but things that require a lot of nuance, nitty-grittiness.
I think so. I think that's a good way of looking at it. Things where AI is really, really good right now are things where there's some amount of creative license. So making images. You don't have to make an image exactly right to get an image that's useful out of AI, or writing marketing copy. But the closer you get, I think, to the thing having to be exactly a specific way, and there's high stakes and it's a complicated environment, the less likely it is that you're going to be able to successfully apply AI on its own to get that.
But specifically when we're looking at software engineers, you were talking about the agent mode with the things that Warp can do, where it'll write the code, it'll test it out, it can deploy and debug and do a whole bunch of things. So naturally, won't there be less software engineers needed?
On the one hand, you're going to have a growing amount of software being built. So there's this expanding pie. I would think of it like this. There's this expanding pie of software that's being built, and this shrinking slice within that pie of tasks that need people to build them. Overall area of that pie slice increase or decrease relative to what it is today? You could maybe say, I don't know. It's just my honest answer. But that's the world that I see happening.
So when you have engineers working in tandem with AI agents, what is the central skill you assess engineers that you look to hire?
Yeah, so we haven't changed our hiring rubric at all. So we are assessing algorithms, coding. We assess everyone we hire on product skills, which is something we've done from the beginning. We do a PM style interview at Warp for all the engineers, which I think is actually going to become more and more relevant to companies as these tools become more capable. We don't yet do an interview where people are allowed to use the AI tools, although we've talked about it. I think that would be a smart thing for us to do. Engineering for us, it's we want those same skills that we've always wanted, And then the additional thing is we want people who can like use those skills to work with an agent to be more productive.
So you take a very product focused approach for engineers.
Correct.
More and more startups are doing those type of interviews where they want you to get very product focused. And I mean, obviously you guys don't, but like some companies allow AI usage and they just time box it and be like, oh, develop this feature that would be integrated in the application within this amount of time, and then run through the code with me so you can actually prove that you understand it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a good, I'm not against that at all. We just haven't done it yet. I think that's a good idea for one of the sessions, but I still very much want to see that an engineer can write code. For lack of a better analogy, like even though calculators exist, I want to see that people can do math. You know what I mean? So I think it's the same kind of thing.
So you talked about product design being a very important skill set for software engineers in kind of like this AI world.
Yep.
What other skills are important for software engineers in this AI world?
Yeah, so I would say ability to think in like terms of systems. You want to, as an engineer, be able to zoom out one level. In fact, that's a fine way of thinking of what's happening is like, you know, in software engineering, things move up abstraction layers. So 40 years ago, you might be coding in assembler, and then you go from assembler to like C. And then we've gone from like C to Java to Python to TypeScript. It just keeps on getting higher and higher levels. So you could think of it that way. And as things get higher level, you want to have a bigger picture. And so I think systems thinking, like how does the database relate to the front end? Like, can you keep the big components in your mind? General problem solving, critical thinking skills, investigation skills. That's important.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of what you do as a developer always to me has been like puzzle solving, and like it's a different kind of puzzle when you're working with an agent. So just those basic things.
In some sense, it feels like we're becoming mini startup founders as engineers.
Yeah, like I think that's really exciting.
Yeah.
Like it's never been a cooler time to be someone who wants to build software. Like think of how much more you can do now as an individual than you could even just a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can make apps really quickly. You could try and start businesses. If you're working on something hard, you can do like a whole new feature for it. I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking about computer science degrees.
Yep.
So the unemployment rate for computer science is currently 6.1%, which is actually amongst like the top 7 highest unemployment rates coming out of universities.
Yeah.
So given that and given all the advancements with AI, is getting a 4-year computer science degree still worth it?
I think yes, just like strongly, full stop. Again, keep in mind, I don't have a computer science degree, but I'm speaking for something like either getting computer science or math or physics or some STEM degree. I don't think it matters all that much specifically which of those you do, but I think you really want something that teaches you the basics of computers. I think you want something that teaches you how to think clearly and rigorously and analytically. Again, I think I said this earlier in this interview, but you want to be the person who's like understands the AI and is smarter than the AI, not the person who the AI can basically do what you can do. And so I think investing in this type of education, I feel like has a lot of intrinsic value. I've always thought that way. Like you can see, like I've never been like a vocational degree type person. I really believe in building these foundational skills. And so I still think computer science is great for that, even if sounds like it's harder to get a job, which is interesting to me.
What would you tell the people who are maybe their first or second year in computer science, they signed up for this and they see AI is taking over this, there's less jobs, and there's just so much anxiety right now. What would you tell those people?
Make sure you're going into this because you want to be building stuff. The best reason to get a computer science degree is like you want to be a builder, you want to understand how computers work, you want to like learn how to think clearly. If you're going in purely because you're like looking for some specific career path, I would favor like having a broader, longer term view. Yeah. As you can see from like my path on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
Ultimately, what I think is going to be valuable to people in their careers is like clear thinking, good analytical skills. I think that there's always jobs for smart people with technical backgrounds, even if it's like you might have to take a more winding path than you want. I don't have a better thing for you to get a major in, put it that way. Like, I don't think you're going to be in a better position getting like doing a history major or something. So I think it's still a fine thing to do. But my focus would be on like really building those foundational skills, and then also like learning how to use the new tool set so you can be really productive.
So just because the path isn't clear doesn't mean there isn't one there.
Man, it's tough for me to go back and be in that position of like anxiety. We're hiring more than we've ever hired for extremely smart computer science new grads. And
Okay.
most of the startups that I know, and I'm like, I'm in contact with a ton of startups, it's a very competitive market for getting like really awesome new grad computer science students. So speaking from like our actual position here, it's not at all like we're like pulling back on that.
Maybe it's probably the big tech companies.
It could be.
There seems to be a lot of unemployed computer science grads, but then startups that are hungry for the best talent. Where do you think the misalignment is happening?
It is super competitive for us to get really, really talented new grad students at Warp. I want them because I love hiring new grads. They work hard. They learn extremely quickly. They have great product insight, especially as we're building for like a new generation of people. And so I think, I don't know what's going on with the big tech companies, why they're not doing it. I would be surprised if it's like purely an AI thing and not some other economic consideration. There was this huge overhire during COVID. I don't know if you remember this, where everyone thought like the demand for all these digital services was going to go like crazy. And so there's been a pullback. I wonder if it's still partly that, because I'm not convinced that it's an AI displacement yet.
So a lot of the audience who are watching would be very interested in potentially getting employed as a software engineer. So if you had to make a pitch as to why someone should work at Warp, what would that be?
Yeah, so you get to work on something that's impactful, that you use every day. For Warp specifically, we're growing really quickly. I think we're in like the most interesting space in terms of truly the way that software is being built is changing. I guarantee it will look different in a year and 3 years and 5 years from now. And so if you go to a startup like Warp, we can move really, really quickly and shape the tools that all of the whole new generation of software developers are using. And, I think us and a few other companies in our space definitely have the opportunity to build really big businesses. It's a very, very big market that we're in. So it's super fun.
Yeah. Awesome. You guys might be interested.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Zach, thank you so much for this. I love this conversation. Learned so much about AI, about your company, and honestly about your crazy, crazy journey. So thank you for joining us. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll catch you guys next time.